The engines droned low over the English Channel, a steady hum that masked the tension gripping every man on board. It was June 6, 1944, D-Day. History would remember the beaches, the gunfire, the chaos. But far from the crashing waves of Normandy, another mission was unfolding in the shadows, one that would quietly save more than 10,000 lives. Inside the dimly lit aircraft, paratroopers checked their gear in silence. Faces smeared with camouflage, hands steady but minds racing. They weren't headed for the beaches. Their target lay inland. Hidden roads, narrow bridges, and small villages that would soon decide the fate of thousands storming the coast. The plan was simple, but the stakes were enormous. German reinforcements were stationed just miles away from the beaches. If those forces reached Normandy in time, the invasion could collapse. Thousands of Allied soldiers, trapped between the sea and a reinforced enemy, would have no way out. So before the first wave hit the shore, these men would jump into the dark, scattered across enemy territory, and disrupt everything. The green light flickered. One by one, they leapt into the night. The sky was chaos. Anti-aircraft fire tore through the darkness. Planes veered off course. Paratroopers were scattered miles from their drop zones. Some landed in flooded fields and drowned under the weight of their equipment. Others found themselves alone, deep behind enemy lines, with no idea where their units were. But the mission didn't change. Small groups began to form in the darkness. 2 men here, 5 men there. Strangers bound by a single objective: stop the Germans from reaching the beaches. They moved quickly. At a narrow causeway leading to Utah Beach, a handful of paratroopers set up an ambush. German convoys rolled in, unaware. Within minutes, the road was blocked, vehicles destroyed, confusion spreading. Reinforcements slowed to a crawl. Miles away, another team located a key bridge. Explosives were set. The blast echoed through the countryside, cutting off a vital route. German units were forced to reroute, losing precious hours. In one village, paratroopers seized control of crossroads, holding them against repeated counterattacks. They were outnumbered, low on ammunition, but they held. Every minute they delayed the enemy meant more soldiers surviving on the beaches. Nothing about it was coordinated anymore. Radios were lost. Officers were missing. The plan had dissolved into fragments. But somehow, those fragments worked. Because the objective was clear: delay, disrupt, deny. As dawn broke over Normandy, the beaches erupted in violence. Landing craft opened, and soldiers poured into machine gun fire. The fight was brutal. Every inch of sand was contested. But something unexpected happened. The massive German counterattack never came. Units that were supposed to crush the invasion were delayed, scattered, or completely cut off. Roads were blocked. Bridges were destroyed. Communications were in disarray. Commanders struggled to understand what was happening behind their own lines. And that confusion, those crucial hours, changed everything. On Utah Beach, casualties were far lower than expected. Troops pushed inland faster than planned. They linked up with the very paratroopers who had been fighting through the night. Men who had landed alone now stood beside the soldiers they had helped save. By the end of the day, the invasion had secured a foothold. Historians would later estimate that these airborne operations prevented a devastating counterattack, saving more than 10,000 lives. Not through a single battle, but through dozens of small, desperate actions carried out in isolation. There were no cameras following them. No headlines the next morning. Just stories. Stories of soldiers who fought in the dark, without orders, without certainty, driven only by the knowledge that somewhere, beyond the hedgerows and fields, thousands of lives depended on them. Many never made it back. Some were captured. Some were killed. Others continued fighting for days, cut off from their units, refusing to give up ground. And yet, their mission succeeded. Because war isn't always decided by the loudest moment. Sometimes, it's decided in silence. In the spaces between the battles everyone remembers. In the early hours of D-Day, while the world focused on the beaches, a scattered force of paratroopers carried out one of the most important missions of the war. They didn't just fight the enemy. They fought time itself. And they won.